This is a make or break year for Scott Satterfield.
You are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bearcats. My name is Jeff Carr, and I am all Cincinnati all the time, baby. I've worked in multiple university athletic departments, and I have been a football season ticket holder for the Bearcats for the last 7 years now. Locked On Bearcats is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your Bearcats, every single day. And on today's podcast, I'm going to give you a more in-depth introduction to myself and my plans for the show a little bit later on here in today's podcast. In just a few minutes, I'll tell you why you need to remember the name Buck when it comes to Bearcats basketball. But we're going to begin with why this year should be the decider for Scott Satterfield's future in Clifton. That's all coming up on today's episode that is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. And where we will begin today is with Scott Satterfield, because he should be coaching for his future with the Bearcats, because I'm honestly leaning toward believing that he's not the guy. Let's talk about what he's done since he's gotten here. In 27 total games coached, this is through Northwestern State, he is 10-17. Hasn't yet had a winning record, hasn't yet had a 500 record or anything like that, hasn't made a bowl with the Bearcats. In fact, you have to go back to the 90s for the first, the last time that the Bearcats went at least 3 straight seasons without going to a bowl game. And yeah, there's a lot of bowls. Do you know how hard it is to not make a bowl? Like, name a thing that probably got a bowl after that. So, you got a Pop-Tarts Bowl. I'd love to see the Bearcats go to the Pop-Tarts Bowl if, they're not really contending for anything, but I digress. That's just being facetious. I want the Bearcats to succeed, and I have not been impressed with Scott Satterfield. And I get it, coming in after Luke Fickell, you're really coming into a scenario where you're not going to please everybody. You're likely going to offend and upset more than you please, but I just haven't seen enough from Scott Satterfield. Yeah, you could say that the defense is seemingly taking a step forward, but whenever Scott Satterfield was hired, he was billed as an offensive coach, the guy that was really going to push the scoring for the Bearcats. I haven't really seen that. I haven't really seen the offense take a step forward. And you're saying, well, Jeff, they just scored 70 points against Northwestern State. Yeah, but it's Northwestern State. It's a bye game. It's the kind of game where UC's giving some money to Northwestern State. They're going to feel good about their performance. That's a game that they should win. They did everything they should do. But the big test starts next week. They're off this week, and they face Kansas next week in Kansas. And that's going to be a very interesting test for Scott Satterfield. I thought that it was a weird heat check to begin this season that I blame more on John Cunningham than I do blame more on Scott Satterfield for losing the game against Nebraska, but he didn't seemingly coach very well in that game. There was a lot of questionable play calls, and it felt like by the time they were ready to throw the ball deep, Nebraska just clamped down on them. They had a defensive backfield that just absolutely shut down anything that the Bearcats could do, and that included Joe Royer. And Scott Satterfield wasn't able to coach around that. I just feel like there have been multiple scenarios now that since Scott Satterfield has taken over as Bearcats head coach, that I've said, okay, I will learn something about him here. And at best, I'm ambivalent toward him. I know there's a lot of folks, and jump down in the comments section, tell me what you think about Scott Satterfield. Really happy to bring Locked On Bearcats back. We're going to be talking about Bearcats football, Bearcats basketball, Bearcats everything every single day here. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you jump down into the comments section. But jump down in the comments section, let me know your thoughts about Scott Satterfield, because quite frankly, the majority of folks that I talk to about this are negative. They feel negatively about Scott Satterfield, and they have every reason to. They've done nothing since he's gotten here. So what's he going to do this year? This is year 3. In any team in college football, year 3 is where you really start to place the expectations on the guy. Year 1, he's just getting his feet wet. Year 2, he's finally got his guys in here, and let's see what they have. Year 3, time to move. Right now they're 2-1, but quite frankly, they should be 2-1. I argue that they should be 3-0 because I felt like Nebraska is beatable. I was not impressed by Minnie Mahomes. Just wasn't impressed. He was throwing a ton of little dink and dunks and all this other stuff. Whatever, man. It was a very nice system that they put together there for him in Nebraska. But what does Scott Satterfield do once we get into the Big 12? Because if it's another year of, there's not really a word for what he's done as far as good or bad. It's just kind of, then I think that the Bearcats need to move on. There's no more of this, we're just happy to be here. Luke Fickell changed all that. I mean, Luke Fickell put this program at the highest pedestal. I'm wearing, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing the t-shirt celebrating 2021. And I get it. You can't expect the Bearcats to be perfect every single year. That's not where we are with this football program, but why not? Why not expect greatness out of the football program? And if we're expecting greatness out of the football program, we expect greatness out of the football coach. And I have not seen greatness from Scott Satterfield. I've seen interestingness. I don't know that I've seen goodness out of Scott Satterfield. I want to see more from him. And look, I think you have to give him a little bit of credit because in this transfer portal era, he's done well to keep guys. He's done well to add to the roster. He's done well to keep important players from transferring out. I mean, the fact that Dontay Corleone has had NFL prospects now for a couple of years, and he is still here providing amazing defensive line power for this team. I give props to Scott Satterfield for providing the kind of environment that a player would want to stick around. That's something. That's not nothing. And the fact that he can add a quarterback like Brendan Sorsby, who I like. I think there's a bit of ambivalence toward him, and I want to go into why I like mixed up Scott Satterfield and Brendan Sorsby in my mind there. Why I like Brendan Sorsby on tomorrow's episode. But I like Brendan Sorsby, and I think that Scott Satterfield deserves credit there. But at the same time, it feels like I still don't necessarily feel that great about Scott Satterfield's tenure. And for me, that's why I want this to be the year. This needs to be the year that the Bearcats make their decision on him. Because this is where I decide exactly, can he lead this team through the Big 12? This is not the American. This is not the other conferences that the Bearcats have been in before. They're in the big time, and I get it. There's arguments about the Big 12 and SEC and Big 10 and all this other stuff, but it's clear that if they succeed here, they can make the college football playoff. If that's not the goal, then what are we doing? Scott Satterfield needs to be put on the hot seat this year if he's not already there. But it's an off week, and that means that we're looking at football, but we're also looking ahead at basketball because we had preseason press conferences with the coaches, and Wes Miller was talking a lot about Buck. And you're going to want to remember that name for basketball season. Tell you why next. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every single ride. They've got more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else to this point. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings that same intention to how they craft every car. You can feel that Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because you make every move count. Impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. It's almost the weekend. That means it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who delivered? Powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more with every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Brendan Sorsby is far and away the Bearcats player of the week from the beatdown of Northwestern State last week because he didn't even throw an incompletion. 15 for 15. He had 5 touchdowns in the first quarter, setting both a Bearcats school record and a Big 12 record for touchdowns in one quarter. He was absolutely dynamite. When the pressure was on, he came through. And just like Brendan Sorsby delivered for the Bearcats, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it all up in a season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. I invite you to make Locked On Bearcats part of your everyday routine. I'd appreciate it if you make us your first listen or your second listen if you happen to listen to my other show, Locked On Reds, with me and Steve Offenbaker, talking about the Cincinnati Reds every single day. But as far as college sports goes, make Bearcats your first listen every single day. And the best way to not miss anything that we've got coming for you all year long is to make sure that you are subscribed right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. We are free and available on every single platform. All right, Wes Miller met with the media. Easy for me to say, right? But met with the media for a little preseason press conference. Practice is getting worked up here soon. And I think it's intriguing because we're heading into a basketball season where I think we need to have expectations similar to Wes Miller, similar to Scott Satterfield. But I feel better about Wes Miller than I do about Scott Satterfield. I think Wes Miller can put together a good roster. The development side is the question. And how is he going to develop these new guys? This roster is ridiculously new. I mean, it's a complete reset button that Wes Miller has hit. But one of the big guys that he brought in, one of the big hits in this reset that Wes Miller had is Sincere Harris. Although he's saying we don't call him Sincere here. We call him Buck.
I think, the thing you guys got to understand about Sincere or Buck, we call him Buck, so I don't want to start confusing you guys later when I start saying Buck. But with him, I mean, he's going to make it a confrontational thing on every defensive possession with whoever's in front of him. Not in a negative way, like he's wired that way. He is uber competitive, uber edgy on that end of the floor, and talented there. And so that's not by some like coaching design, but he's going to do that with everybody he matches up with. And so that's been good for our whole team and our whole roster. And then it's been infectious a little bit because Day may not be as outwardly edgy, but he's got a fire that burns pretty deep, so it brings out a level of his edge, right? And then Jalen Haynes is outwardly edgy too, right, in a good way, and that brings it out. So practice has been, in the summertime, it was maybe a little bit more competitive than I've seen that early in the season, and a lot of them have a lot to do with that, but Buck certainly has a lot to do with it too.
Based on his incoming resume and based on, Wes Miller talking about him right there in that clip even, I'm really excited for Buck Harris. I mean, he is the kind of player that this team desperately needed last year, but he's the kind of player that you can easily build a successful basketball team around. He is a very aggressive defender, on-ball defender in the guard space. He's going to be in that front court. He's going to be a key member moving the ball around on offense. He's not going to be a guy that leads your offense, but he's going to be a very stable force for you. And he's talked a lot about him, and I've read some great stuff over at Bearcat Journal about Buck Harris. We're going to start calling him Buck on the podcast. I know it's Sincere Harris, but Wes Miller calls him Buck. We'll call him Buck. But things about Buck are that, he didn't shoot the ball all that well last season, but there were some extenuating circumstances that he was going through in his life that he kind of that some folks were like, yeah, that probably was weighing down on him whenever he was shooting. But defense is what he loves. Buck was a Big 12 All-Defensive Team honoree last season for West Virginia, and the fact that he's coming over here to Wes Miller's side, and he was a guy that, at least according to the Bearcat Journal piece that I read, He was recruited by Wes Miller a couple of years ago, but because he left campus without an offer in hand, he received an offer from other schools. He didn't end up coming here right away, but he still loves what Wes Miller's putting on. That's why he came here now. I mean, last year, kind of falling back on that whole Big 12 all-defensive team honor that he received, he had 54 steals in 32 games. He's going to be a disruptor in the front court. It's something that the Bearcats haven't had on a regular basis for a while now. They've missed that on the court, and he's going to be that guy that can really drive that. And I think that for me, like, as much as they have really rebuilt the roster and there's a lot of new guys in the post, there's a lot of new guys all around, and Day-Day's really the big holdover, the guy that's going to lead them all. Feels like Buck Harris is going to fall in as either his first lieutenant or, whatever. I'm getting dramatic with the titles here. But the other guy that leads the locker room. And I really like to see, I'm very excited to see what we get out of Buck. But this is also more pressure on Wes Miller, right? Like, Wes Miller in his tenure with the Bearcats has been disappointing. There's no other way about that. They just haven't achieved at the level that we're used to. Bearcats basketball has a rich history of achieving some awesome things. And I think here recently, it's kind of been an afterthought, right? It felt like with the Luke Fickell era of football, we've really kind of caught up as far as how much people view the football team and the basketball team. And we just haven't seen Wes Miller really take off with this ball club. And I say ball club, I say that a lot on Locked On Reds, but we haven't seen him take off with this team. So I really want to see what he can do now, even though he's hitting the reset button again. I think it's tough to evaluate basketball coaches on a year in and year out basis in college basketball, but how do they rise above the turmoil? The transfer portal has created so much turmoil when it comes to roster turnover, and you're just not getting those crews that are sticking together for a long period of time. And he talked about, and we're going to play other clips of this as we move along through the preseason basketball phase, play different clips of what he had to say about the roster. Because he was asked, how do you have leadership on a team like this that has seen so much turnover? And he talked a lot about Day-Day, but also just the fact that there are other guys who have experience elsewhere that when they bring that experience together, it's going to meld. And they believe that. That's why they constructed the roster accordingly. But he's just adding more pressure onto himself. A guy like Buck Harris can be a guy who can take that pressure off. Because if you're able to limit these teams in the Big 12, we're talking about as much as, you look at the Big 12 in football and you have a feeling about it as being a good conference, but not on the level of the SEC or the Big 10. For me, it's the best conference in college basketball, hands down. I think that the SEC is close, but the Big 12 is the best. And so in order to play with the teams in the Big 12, you got to have that D. You got to be able to stop them, shut them down when you need to. And they didn't have that guy last year. Buck Harris at least presents them with that option. He could be that guy to help them shut down, the Kansases and the Oklahoma States of the world and the high-powered offenses that we're going to see on a night-in and night-out basis. There's a gauntlet coming. When we look over the schedule and when it comes to how the Bearcats begin the Big 12, it's a lot, man. You don't have those nights where you're like, yeah, I think that the Bearcats could get away with a lot and still get this win. They're going to have to play some really good ball, and they're going to have to play it consistently. And a guy like Buck Harris is going to be that guy that helps you not only on the defensive side, as much as I'm excited about that, but just with offensive consistency and keeping the ball moving. That's going to be the key here in this league that is just, it's stacked. There ain't two ways about it. Big 12 is tough. Bearcats got to be tougher. Buck Harris is going to be one of the reasons that they're tougher. But coming up next, I want to lay out the plan that I have for this show moving forward and just who I am in a little bit more detail. Did you know that most people can't really even name all of their accounts or what they're worth? In fact, I'm one of them. But Monarch Money is here to help because whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments, they can put this all into one financial picture for you on one screen. Monarch Money is so clutch when it comes to this. It's helped me really feel good about my finances and feel good about knowing where I am, because Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off the first year. That's 50% off your first year with monarchmoney.com, and use that code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Appreciate you joining the show, and I encourage you to keep the conversation going with me after the show on Twitter and on TikTok. You can follow me at Jeff Carr with 3 F's, Jefff Carr. The third F is actually my middle initial, just a spoiler alert there. You can also find me on Instagram. Just flip the username for Twitter and TikTok. It's Carr Jeff with 3 F's. And also, we've got a new Locked On Bearcats Twitter account. I haven't really done much with it just yet, but you can follow us on Twitter at LO_Bearcats, and then on TikTok and Instagram at Locked On Bearcats, all spelled out, all one word. But I appreciate you joining me here today. This is my first episode with Locked On Bearcats. I have done the same show about the Cincinnati Reds for 7 seasons now, so I was a little bit nervous to branch out and start something new, but I've been a Bearcats fan all my life. I have always been Cincinnati through and through. If you cut me open, Skyline comes out, and as my wife, who is very, she's in healthcare, she would say that's probably not a good thing, but that's just how it is. That's what happens. I've always loved Cincinnati sports, and I've always been a huge Bearcats fan. Very excited to take this show on. A little bit of background on me. I actually worked in a couple of athletic media relations departments for both Mercer University and for Tennessee State University. Mercer, I covered softball. Tennessee State, I covered volleyball, and I traveled with the men's basketball team as well. Got to see a lot of great stuff that year. This was back in 2015. Yeah, I'm old. But 2015, I was traveling with Tennessee State. That was when they were in the Ohio Valley Conference, and so was Murray State. That was when Ja Morant was a freshman. He was really good back then too, but it was fun to watch him play ball and just absolutely destroy Tennessee State. I feel bad. There were some good kids on that team, but they were definitely overmatched in a couple of different areas, and especially when they faced Murray State and Ja Morant. But I've been around sports all my life, covering all kinds of different sports, and really the experience that I got traveling with men's basketball with Tennessee State has just made me appreciate Bearcats basketball all the more. I mean, I remember watching Kenyon Martin on TV, and I remember watching those Bob Huggins teams. I remember, loving everything, loving every time Mick Cronin would get mad at a camera or something, like, get mad and the camera would be looking at him, not as if he was finding the camera to look mad, but just he'd be staring down a player, that face, and he gets really mad at guys. Everything about the Bearcats has always been in the top of my mind when it comes to Bearcats athletics. And I've loved the fact that the volleyball team's been fantastic here for the past couple of years. The baseball team has really taken a step forward as well. Looking forward to covering all of those. And when it comes to Locked On Bearcats and the plan that I have for this show, I really want to get a lot of different voices on here with me as well. As much as I love talking about the Bearcats, I love the community that surrounds the Bearcats. I mean, Chad Brindle's going to be on here a lot with me, hopefully every week. I'm trying to make sure that happens each and every Monday or Tuesday, one of those 2 days. When it comes to having Chad Brindle from Bearcat Journal on, want to have Russ Heltman on here as well. In fact, he's going to be with me on our next show tomorrow, and we're going to be breaking down Brendan Sorsby and why he's awesome, and looking forward to the basketball season and things like that. But then also making sure we get Dan Horde on here talking about everything Bearcats, because he's everything Bearcats as well. And hopefully Tony Pike from time to time will join me too. You can't have Bearcats without Tony Pike, that's for sure. I know everybody says Travis Kelce, but man, it's Tony Pike. Come on now, we all know the truth. But I love me some Bearcats community conversation when it comes to these teams and when it comes to this university. So definitely hit me up on socials. Maybe make sure you're in the comments section too. I want to try to make sure to respond to everybody and have a conversation going at all times. We're going to be with you every single day as we go through football season, as we lead up to basketball season, but all throughout the year. I want Locked On Bearcats to be a destination for you, for your Bearcats fix. I mean, come on. There's not a time of the year that we're not thinking about UC athletics, and we're not thinking about Bearcats sports and what's going to happen next and who's going to be there for this university. There's definitely a lot of opportunities this basketball season. I'm very excited about basketball season because of the unknown, because of the fact that this team is so new. And what Wes Miller is going to have to do with all these different guys. There's so much talent. There's so much athleticism. One of the things I want to focus on tomorrow, whenever Russ Heltman joins me, is that we're going to talk about the fact that it kind of feels like there's a lot of versatility. There's a lot of guys. You could almost play positionless basketball with this team. And Wes Miller is going to have a fun time figuring that out. But also as the football season turns to conference play, the Big 12 is so enigmatic when it comes to football. Like, as soon as you think you know who the best team is in this conference, somebody else is going to step up. And why not the Bearcats? As much as I am critical of Scott Satterfield, and I will be critical of him this season, I do like elements of this team. And Joe Royer is a huge part of why I love the Bearcats. Joe Royer and Dontay Corleone, as those two guys go, so will this team. And that's why the defense has improved. I mean, you're seeing better play out of the linebackers with Jack Dingle, and the defensive backfield is coming along. But it's all about Dontay Corleone, and can the Godfather really lead that unit forward? And then how does the defense take away Joe Royer from this Bearcats game plan on offense? That's going to be the key to what the Big 12 does with Cincinnati this season. Cincinnati is such an unknown to this conference. I mean, if you're checking out later this week, I think on Friday is when it releases, but the Big 12 Squad Show, I will join a bunch of other hosts from the conference, and we'll just talk, we'll just shoot the breeze about the Big 12. And when it comes to this week's schedule and things like that, of course, the Bearcats are off, but you will see that the Bearcats are still kind of a blind spot for the Big 12. And I think that Scott Satterfield has a bit of an edge because of that. How does he use that edge? And how does he exploit the blind spot that he has? I mean, I think that if you were on the outside looking in at the Bearcats football team, it would basically be that they are a ball control team that really wants to slow you down on defense and make sure you can't control the ball. But I think that Brendan Sorsby gives them that extra edge that you just cannot plan for them to run the ball 40 times a game. As much as some people might think that should be the plan for the Bearcats, Brendan Sorsby opens up that book. And so that's what we're going to be talking about quite a bit. We're going to be looking at everything UC Athletics here on Locked On Bearcats. So make sure you subscribe and follow me on the socials. Follow me at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs, like I mentioned, on Twitter and on TikTok. Definitely want to have a lot more conversations as we get into football season, and I'm going to be at home games. I'm a season ticket holder, set in section 117, row 24, seats 39 and 40. Right there on the edge. I don't know if you ever go down the steps on that side of the stadium or around that area of the stadium, but it's right where the step gets a little bit too tall. And we kind of like silently count how many people trip on that step each game. It's a lot. It's kind of funny how that works out. But definitely going to be down at every home game for the rest of this season, and hoping to get down to a lot of Bearcats basketball games as well. But we're going to be with you every step of the way. And I want to thank you again for making Locked On Bearcats part of your day, and invite you to make us part of your day every day. If you have not yet done so, please subscribe, like, and comment, and do all the things. All of those things will help grow this community for Bearcats fans to find more easily. Now, go check out go check out Fire TV college football kickoff. It's another big moment on Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV presents the college football kickoff show, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll, our host of Locked On Big 12, leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Hawley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch the college football kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Thanks again, and I will see all of you tomorrow.